Hey everyone, this is Christian C. And in this module, we're going to talk about our ego self and emotions. One thing about humans is that we are habitual creatures, by which most of the time we lead our lives blindly through our emotional state. We're so used to going into certain states automatically. We just need something to spark that emotion, and boom, we are there. Sometimes this is to our benefit, and sometimes it's not. Regardless of where your emotions are originating from and what causes you to feel negative emotions, oftentimes we do not clearly know their true origin. This creates an energy block because instead of addressing the main source, getting over it, and fixing it, we further subconsciously mask or hide the true source and oftentimes paint the cause of our energy block differently from what it truly is. When we do this, we further move away from any clarity we might have towards fixing the key issue. That is why I often like to simplify any sort of negative emotion such as stress or anxiety and label it simply as an energy block because oftentimes they are muddled with many different thoughts of what started them in the first place. Gaining clarity sometimes means giving simple labels to complex issues so that we can easily bring them up and reference them when we need to without dwelling on them for too long. We reference them and we find ways to move beyond these energy blocks and from the energy that created them. Perhaps our emotions could have originated with what we had for lunch or that extra cup of coffee we drank, which made us feel more jittery. And perhaps that's why we started to be more defensive with someone, which further led to more turmoil. Oftentimes, we don't track the true source of our emotions and simply heed to them. We simply take them as being true and nothing but the truth, regardless of whether it is us, a belief of ours, an external force, or any other reason. And the worst part is acting out based on our emotions without giving any thought to their validity, even if the true source of our emotional state was simply that extra cup of coffee we had. It might be a simple emotional state that is so subtle that we fail to distinguish, track, and correct. It might very well be a physiological issue. Perhaps we did not get enough sleep. Perhaps it is the medicine we're taking. Perhaps it's our diet, such as one in which we do not intake any sugar, such as keto, for instance. It could be a variety of things, but my point is that we often lose track of the true source of what originated that emotion that then turned into an energy block. These actions all contribute to our emotional state, yet quite often we do not pay attention to the many factors that are at play. Let's start with the bigger picture and ask, is it essential to find out why we're feeling negative emotions and having energy blocks? Is it important in finding out how the issue originated? And the questions again are, is it essential to find out why we're feeling negative emotions and having energy blocks? Is it important in finding out how the issue originated? Your mission is to gain enough clarity and develop a process that you may use to break through and ascend past your energy blocks. At times, asking why did this happen can be important in gaining clarity and understanding so that you may ascend onward. Yet, even a more powerful thing to do is ask why of the future. Why is it so important for me to accomplish this? Why is it so important for me to accomplish this? If you know your why, then you will feel like you must succeed and you will have a reason on why you need to transform and reach your goal. Perhaps your why is connected to someone that you care about. And perhaps your why is there so that you can amplify your greater energy and elevate your life to a whole new level and away from energy blocks and away from low vibrational people that currently surround you. Ultimately, as long as you don't relish the past and use it as a crutch or as an excuse as to why you are in this situation at the moment, then it's okay to explore the past to some extent. The past does not dictate your future. Have you heard this before? How about this? Your past energy will not dictate your future energy. Again, your past energy will not dictate your future energy. Your past energy flow will not be the same energy flow you will engender in your future. You are on a journey to become someone much greater than the energy you hold onto even today. You are, in a sense, becoming your most ideal energy. Simply by letting go of what holds you down and amplifying your greater source of energy. Your ego self will want to wrestle this growth from you. Your ego self wants you to stay where it is without changing. But if you allow your higher self to guide you, then becoming one with ascending energy will eventually transform you to that place that you deserve to be. After we break through that pain threshold and elevate our ascension point, we take flight. This is when our duality transforms our energy into one. To get to that point of transformation, we must continue to spark the right questions daily, questions that will guide our true self towards ascension. One of the main questions to be aware of and ask constantly is, how can I change this so I'm not a victim of my emotional state? And even a better question to ask would be, how can I change my emotional state so I can capture the right daily energy in order to feel motivated and ascend on my journey? The question again, how can I change my emotional state so I can capture the right daily energy in order to feel motivated and ascend on my journey? This becomes possible when we zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So part of the answer, at least for me and my experience, is having the ability to zoom out from my ego self and see myself subjectively from a higher universal point of view. Again, this becomes possible when we zoom out and we look at the bigger picture. And yes, this would be looking at the bigger picture from the perspective of your higher self. So before we look at the bigger picture, let me reiterate this point. Quite often, our emotions will be one of the many things in life that we will perceive as being quote-unquote real. We believe that since we're feeling them and experiencing them, therefore they must be real, right? Perhaps at the time, yes, and perhaps at other times, not so much. It is difficult at times to break away from our emotions, which are fueling our ego self in the wrong direction. When we are in an emotional state, even a subtle emotional state, we tend to forget our higher self and just be so ego-driven. It's like our vision that we had for our ideal lifestyle completely goes out the window. This is because our ego self and our higher self are often wrestling with each other. Our ego self is a true artist of self-deception at covering its own tracks. It is the first to ring the alarm towards our needs and desires. Your emotional state feeds your ego, which in turn makes your state seem all too quote-unquote real. Although if we examine it closely, we will then discover that we're being led by other factors apart from our own natural state of thinking and being. This matters because it shows that we will always be affected by many different contributing factors, including external factors we experience each day. And this is the crucial part. Our ego self will weaponize these emotional experiences in order to gain the upper hand. This leads to a back and forth wrestling where our ego self tries to pin down our higher self, no matter how hard we try to quell our emotions that are in overdrive within our ego self. And the outcome can vary from person to person and from moment to moment. Within the same person, we can still have a clear and significant rage to a more of a brooding internal anger, even to just showing annoyance and lethargy. Sometimes we will just feel so tired and cave in from being on such an emotional state that it sucks away our energy. That is one of the main reasons that our energy gets so drained when we look at the past and continuously replay the why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? When we reloop the same energy over and over again, we then inherit and relive that energy. And it's not something that we can just turn off like a switch and say, okay, I want to change this negative energy now and feel better. Sometimes it becomes so ingrained within us that it even makes us physically sick. We must not let it get to that point. We must shift our energy forward, and we can create that spark by starting with the right questions, such as, how is it possible for my higher self to deliver energy balance so that my ego self does not completely push me in the wrong direction? All of these questions that I mentioned are here to help you build your own energy process. Ultimately, our higher self will win, and it's possible to get there sooner when we apply the right steps towards continuing in our journey of ascension. Here's a good contrast. Our ego self wants to rush and get all the good things it seeks right now. The higher self gives you the patience, will, and good virtue to see things through a universal matrix view so that you can process all good things organically within time. Remember that when we are in ascension, that's when our higher self becomes in sync with our ego, both working in harmony and moving towards the attainment of our goals and dreams. Essential insights to keep in mind. Learn to break down and understand the ego self process so that you can optimize it. This means identifying energy blocks emanating from your ego self, but then breaking down the process of understanding that even further. From an ego self level, you can then break down that process by understanding your mind's framework and automatic responses. Then going even further into understanding your fight or flight automatic responses and understanding the subconscious relooping that we all do. All of this builds up our energy blocks when energy does not flow outwardly, but rather we continue to fill up our energy banks with negative energy. Develop your personal process and map out a way to get out of a rut so that you may continue on your journey of ascension. At times, you can take as much weight off as possible by asking, what can I do to make this situation entertaining, if at all possible? Again, is there anything that I can do to make this situation a little bit more entertaining, if at all possible? Is there something funny or something humorous that I could bring? Is there any sort of humorous energy that I could throw into the mix? If possible, give it a shot. Why not put some light moments into perhaps a serious or more dramatic situation? Of course, not always will this be the case, but having this as an option or a possibility can greatly benefit you. And ask yourself, how may I improvise my energy? Is there anything that you can do to improvise your energy either with your actions or your words? Perhaps trying something new out of the ordinary. It could be fun, it could be funny, it could be different, it could be eye-catching, original, but again, it's another option. And another question is, what duality techniques can I use to break away from energy blocks? What duality techniques can I use to break away from energy blocks? These are all essential points that we're just zooming into right now, but ones that we will build upon within this program so we can get a greater perspective. It is important that our ability to zoom into details is the main source that will begin to form an overall zoomed out picture for us. In the following modules, we will continue to expand upon this.